Sir Anthony Browne, the man who was given Send and Ripley as a present.
In 1990, the National Westminster Bank in Ripley closed and the building was moved on the back of a low loader down the High Street and into the car park of Ripley Village Hall. This amazing feat can be seen on our website in a film called The Bank Job. It became the museum for Send and Ripley History Society, but sadly, because of coronavirus, the museum is currently shut. But we thought you might enjoy a virtual tour of our current exhibition. So welcome to our museum. Let me show you around. As you can see, it's a very small museum, perhaps one of the smallest museums in the country. But we like to think we're a small museum with big ideas. Now to the story. It is entitled Sir Anthony Browne, the man who was given Send and Ripley as a present. This is, of course, an exaggeration, but it is true that after the dissolution of the monasteries, there was a huge redistribution of land across the country, with the King, Henry VIII, rewarding his friends and allies, and Sir Anthony was one of those beneficiaries. He was born in 1500, and there is a strong possibility that he was born in Surrey, because his father, also Sir Anthony Browne, had been born at Betchworth Castle. Sir Anthony's father became Standard-Bearer of England and later Constable of Calais. Young Anthony's mother was Lady Lucy Neville, daughter of John Neville, 1st Marquis of Montague. Young Anthony, or perhaps we should call him our Anthony, as both his father and his son had the same name, was about 9 years younger than Henry VIII and became his close and trusted friend. His first official appointment was in 1518, but by 1527, not yet 30, he was ambassador to France. In 1528, he married Alice Gage, daughter of Sir John Gage and Philippa Guildford. She was born in Brockham in Surrey around 1506. She and Sir Anthony had 7 sons and 3 daughters. Sometime after 1540, his wife having died, Anthony Browne married Lady Elizabeth Fitzgerald, daughter of Gerald Fitzgerald, the 9th Earl of Kildare, and Lady Elizabeth Grey. They had 2 children who sadly both died young, but it was through this connection that he was later to acquire 2 well-known Surrey houses. But more of this anon. In 1536, there were uprisings in Lincolnshire and Yorkshire, known collectively as the Pilgrimage of Grace. This protest involved a variety of grievances, but were in part a protest against Henry VIII's break with Rome, and the rebels united for a time behind this Catholic banner. The king sent Sir Anthony, amongst others, to suppress the protests, and perhaps in part to test his loyalty. Browne, a lifelong Catholic, executed the task and maintained the king's trust from then on. There are papers relating to this episode among the Loseley archive at the Surrey History Centre. Sir Anthony was elected to Parliament as Knight for the Shire of Surrey in 1539, and in the same year was appointed Master of the King's Horse, an appointment for life. In 1540 he was made Knight of the Garter and given ownership of Battle Abbey and the Priory of St Mary Overy in Suffolk, both confiscated in 1538 as part of the dissolution of the monasteries. The house which he built at Southwark was for generations the London residence of his descendants, the Viscounts Montague, the title taken by his son. It was the dissolution of the monasteries that was to create a local connection with Send and Ripley. When Cardinal Wolsey fell from favour with Henry VIII because of his failure to secure a divorce for the king, it set in train a whole new relationship between church and state. After the fall of Wolsey, Thomas Cromwell masterminded a raft of statutes, initially driven by Henry's wish to marry Anne Boleyn, which had required the break with Rome. But by the 1530s, the driving force was economic rather than religious. The first round of dissolutions in 1536 affected religious houses with incomes of less than £200 per year. Clerics could either leave religion altogether with a pension or transfer to another larger house. Some of the land was given to favourites or to reward support, but the vast majority was sold. The dissolution year of Newark Priory, of which this is a model, was in 1539. At the time, there were 9 canons in residence and 41 servants and farm workers. The valuable items of silver were all sent to the Master of the Jewels in the Tower of London to be melted down. Other ornaments and utensils, corn, hay, cattle, and farm equipment were sold for under £100. Unfortunately, we only have a few low-value items in the exhibition that have been found since. Anthony Browne was initially appointed Farmer for the Crown to administer the Newark estate, but in 1544 he was granted the manor of Ripley, including Newark, but neither he nor his family ever lived here. It's believed that he removed the good building material from the priory site and used it to rebuild his house at Byfleet. He was also awarded the manors of Send, Jewry and East Clandon, together with Brede, Sussex, which included a considerable part of the town of Hastings. This is a picture of the wonderful document in the Surrey History Centre, listing the properties given to Anthony Browne. Unfortunately, as you can see, the document is quite badly creased and also in Latin, so we do not have exact details of the award. However, there is another document in the History Centre dating from 1712, long after Sir Anthony's death, which concerns the sale of his family's property in the area to the Onslow family, and this is helpfully in English. We are not aware of any substantial sales or purchases by the Browne family before this date, so it gives us a guide as to some of the properties he may have owned. These included the vicarage of Send, Ripley Chapel, now St Mary Magdalene, Chapel Farm, Send Barnes Farm, Jury's Farm, Alderton's, the George Inn at Ripley, now Cedar House and Tudor House, Ryde Farm, Newark Mill, and various other parcels of land in West Horsley, Send, Ripley, Ockham, Woking, Purford, Wisley, and more. It was not just the grant of land that indicated his favourable position with the king. In 1537, Sir Anthony had been present at the christening of the future Edward VI and was one of the knights who guarded the silver font on that occasion. As both a conservative and a Catholic, Browne had to be careful not to be brought down by factional politics at the court of Henry VIII. He became so trusted by the king, in the king's latter years, Browne held a dry stamp of the king's signature for use on minor letters. And during the last illness of Henry VIII, Browne, with good courage and conscience, undertook to tell the king of his approaching end. Henry appointed him guardian to Prince Edward and Princess Elizabeth, made him one of his executors, and left him a legacy. On the king's death, Browne broke the news to the young prince, and when, as Edward VI, he made his public entry into London, Anthony Browne, as Master of the Horse, rode beside him. One other interesting resource that throws light on his relationship with Henry are the so-called Cowdrey Engravings. In 1543, on the death of his maternal half-brother, Sir William Fitzwilliam, Earl of Southampton, Sir Anthony Browne had inherited further estates, including the Priory of Easebourne and the estate of Cowdrey, both close to Midhurst. Part of the magnificent mansion of Cowdrey had already been built by William Fitzwilliam, but much was added by Browne. The Cowdrey Engravings are based on 5 paintings that were produced between 1545 and 1548 and were painted onto the walls of Browne's Hall in Cowdrey House. They showed key scenes in his life and might have been used by him when recounting stories during formal events. The painting included the departure of Henry VIII from Calais, the encampment of King Henry VIII at Marquezon, the siege of Boulogne by Henry VIII, the encampment of the English forces near Portsmouth, and the riding of Edward VI from the Tower of London to Westminster. In the 1760s, the Earl of Hardwicke, a keen antiquarian, proposed producing engravings of these paintings. His colleague, Sir Joseph Ayloffe, was spurred on by his interest and convinced the Society of Antiquaries to record them as engravings. The encampment of the English forces near Portsmouth was rendered as a watercolour by John and Charles Sherwin, and then engraved by James Bassier. The engravings were published in 1788 with a print run of 400 copies, distributed to the Fellows of the Society and sold to the public. Cowdrey House burnt down on the 24th of September 1793, and the paintings were mostly destroyed, leaving the engravings as the only record. One of these engravings, the encampment of the English forces near Portsmouth, shows the Battle of the Solent and depicts scenes from everyday life, but also includes Sir Anthony Browne and Charles Brandon, Duke of Suffolk, accompanying Henry VIII as he watched events, including the sinking of his flagship, the Mary Rose. Finally, back to the 2 other Surrey properties that I mentioned earlier. These were West Horsley Place and Hatchlands. It seems that after the disgrace of the Courtenay family, the Browne family became owners of West Horsley Place, and it was here that his son was to die in 1592. In 1544, Sir Anthony was also granted Hatchlands at East Clandon. It was granted by Henry to Anthony Browne and his wife, Lady Elizabeth Fitzgerald, known as the Fair Geraldine. The park had previously belonged not to Newark Priory, but to Chertsey Abbey. Browne survived Henry VIII by only 1 year and died at his house at Byfleet on the 6th of May, 1548. He was buried with great pomp at Battle next to his first wife Alice, and we can still see the tomb to this day. We hope you've enjoyed the exhibition, and we look forward to putting more resources online in due course.